I know it's a dream for a lot of people to buy their own land out in the country and begin homesteading. Uh, I'm guessing for most people it has to do with prepping and a lot of other things too. Because I know, like for myself, I spent almost all my life in and around Chicago area, and I mean that place is a total toilet. Even when people weren't like completely violent with each other, there always seemed to be like this passive aggressiveness where just there's just so many people there that just everybody hates each other and just looks at everybody else as an inconvenience to them. And it just always felt to me like that old Roadrunner cartoon, where there'd be like a line of gunpowder leading up to a pile of dynamite, and it's struck and you can see the flame moving towards that pile, and that's what these highly populated areas look like to me. And I know I had to get out. I'm sure you want to as well if you're watching this. So I wanted to talk about it. The idea of strategic relocation isn't really anything new. I mean, you got to imagine like the first caveman was probably sitting in his cave and thinking to himself, it's a little bit damp and drafty in here. There's an angry bear living in the back. Like, I think I'm going to move somewhere that's a little bit better for me. But I think that the name strategic relocation came from the book of that name by Joel Skousen. And it was a very interesting one, but I don't think it's something that you have to go and necessarily dig up, because like all these other lists of people put up lists of places where they think would be the best to move to homestead or raise a family or prepare for stuff hitting the fan and whatever. But all of those lists always seem to me to have some bias from the author about what they think would be the best area. But I think what's better is to go through a process that works specifically for you. So I'll kind of go through some of the things I was thinking when I bought this property. And yes, I'll be using myself as an example, but that's really unimportant. What matters is more the process, the thought process, and then you can apply it for whatever your own specific needs are, because all of us are different on things. I had to get out of the cold. I wanted to move south where it was warmer. Every winter I was suffering just a little bit more than the year before, but I know some of you guys got polar bear blood in you, and you just thrive in the deep snow and cold. So we're all going to be different. And everything in life is a trade-off. Everything. It's not to say that one place is better than another. It's just, what are you willing to give up and live with or live without? That's just what it all comes down to. So I don't think your homesteading journey really starts the day that you move on to your new property. For me, it started over 5 years prior to that. I had just been, evaluating my life and everything going on, and I thought, I don't want to continue living where I was and doing what I had been doing. So I had made a goal, and I told my family and friends about it. I said, on my 40th birthday, I'm going to leave my job and leave this state and go move somewhere better. And I think probably a lot of them were like, yeah, okay, whatever, that's whatever. But I did, I set that date, and for 5 years I spent the time and researched and looked and found exactly what I wanted. And that's something that, even if you're not prepared to do it right now, you're low on cash, or your life situation just doesn't allow you to move, this is something that doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost you anything to do your research and look around. So you really want to start from the biggest picture and then just narrow down. On the biggest picture, think worldwide. If there's a place that you can expatriate to another country that would be better for you than the one that you're in, don't discard it. I elected not to leave the country because Well, for one, a big one for me is gun rights. In the U.S., for all the faults that we still have, I think we can still be a lot better on gun rights, but it's still one of the best in the world as far as that goes. And I wasn't willing to compromise on that thing. And then there's issues of like learning a new language. I mean, I would not move somewhere unless I was absolutely willing to very quickly learn their language and their customs. You want to fit in. You don't want to go somewhere where you can't communicate with people, and there's major differences between you. I get it. That's what a lot of rich people do is they will have like buy farms in different parts of the world. That way if they have their home here in the US, but if say political turmoil or war or something bad kicks off, they can go because they got a farm in Uruguay. And then they got another one over in Southeast Asia somewhere in Thailand. So they have multiple options where if things are going down, they can always just scoot. But for most of us, that's just not reasonable. So, for me, I had to focus on just finding the one place where, okay, this is going to be where I make my last stand no matter what. And the other concern with moving to another country is say I bought property out in Uruguay. Well, when stuff does hit the fan, do I really want to be the only gringo in the town? That kind of concerns me as well. So I was more comfortable staying here, but again, look for yourself. If there's something that works better for you, do that. And then the next thing you would do is start eliminating down to regions of whatever country you like best. Um, Whether that's by state or by region, there's a lot of the states have a lot of things in common. And you may look at, the Appalachian region or the Northeast, Pacific Northwest. You may like the desert Southwest. Start looking at those things. What is it specifically that you like? Climate should be a big one to consider. For me, I wanted a climate that, for one, like I said, was a little bit warmer than I was used to, milder winter, but I wanted there to be enough rainfall that, it was easy enough to grow crops and collect my own rainwater because that's what I do. I don't have running water, so uh, I need it to rain enough for me to be able to do that. It's not to say that you can't move to an arid or a desert region. There are lots of people living out in places like that, and I think are set up very well for rough times out there. But your water will always be an issue, so it's something you got to take into consideration and prepare for. Make sure that if you're going to live in that kind of climate, that you are set up, you have your water down pat, because if you have it shipped into you all the time, man, that's a sticking point there that could mean trouble for you if that supply chain were to stop and you weren't getting water shipped to you. So finding down the state level or province, whatever the case may be, whatever country you're looking at, you really want to look at the laws as far as what concerns homesteading and things. Not only, how loose are they on your ability to keep animals and garden, because a lot of places don't even let you do that stuff. But also on rainwater collection. Some places, the government actually thinks that they own the rain that falls from the sky and you're not allowed to collect it. Are you able to be off grid? A lot of places require you to be connected to the power grid. I know of off grid people who collect their own solar power completely independent, yet they still have to pay the $20 a month to be connected to the power grid because that's just what the law in their area says. You want to avoid that kind of stuff. Um, Look into things like plumbing and what you can and can't get away with. Like, I was not willing to pay to put in a septic system out here, so I found an area where I can get away with doing a compost toilet. Um, Some places, again, won't allow that kind of thing. So you got to do your research on that. This state here, Arkansas, does not allow outhouses. So it's got to be a compost toilet kind of setup. So it's not that any of these things are necessarily deal breakers, but you just got to know about them and work around them and decide for yourself, you and your family, what will and will not work, you know, and think of it in terms of, okay, let's say the stuff does hit the fan. Is this place going to be a place where you can work towards being self-sufficient? I believe it's when you're thinking about that, it's worth looking at where you live and drawing a circle around it of how far can you walk in, say, half a day. If you can walk half that way and then get back home before dark, that's kind of all you would ever have. That would be your new world, that circle. Whether it's a 5 mile radius or 10 mile radius around your home, that's it. So you got to look at, is this area capable to survive off of, be self-reliant at, even if not immediately, because yes, all that stuff takes time. You know, it will take many years to grow your own food and raise your own animals and build infrastructure and that. But at least does the area have the potential? So a big one should be population density, as far as that's concerned, right? Big cities just would not fare well. There's lots of people and no food there. I think it'd be bad. I mean, think about that. If there's millions of people there and there's no food, what is the one protein source that would be available there? People are going to be turning on each other for sure. Uh, Lower population densities are better. So if that's what you're looking for, it's really easy to just go and do a search online, say population density by county in whatever state or province you're looking at. It's easy. It'll pop up, maps and tables and things like that. This stuff's all very easy to find online. So finding a lower population density area should be a priority. Not only that, but usually that land is cheaper to get and better for growing things at. Wikipedia is actually a good place to look for this kind of information. I usually don't like them for doing serious research or none, but as far as just looking into, what areas are like, it is a pretty good resource to look at. Start breaking down by state and then by region within that state, because they're all different. Like my neighbors in Oklahoma, everybody thinks of it as just flat plains out there, but actually the eastern part of it looks just like this mountainy forest area where we're connected like it. So on the far east part, it's forest mountains like this, and then there's plains, and then on the far end of it, it's even like desert. So it's one of the most varied type of climates you can find in the country. So don't just discount a state because you've got some preconceived notion about it. Oh, that state's just hot, or that state's cold or wet, or what. Every area is a little bit different. So you gotta narrow it down little by little by little. And in Wikipedia, it does allow you to find stuff like that. Once you start looking in the specific counties information about it, it gives you somewhere to start researching further. So I had developed a number of areas that I was looking to scout out. And then I took time off work and went and visited those. And it was, 4 or 5 areas, and went and drove through them and stayed in that. And when I got here to the Ouachita Mountains, I just remember looking around and I was like, this is it. It just spoke to me. And that's what would happen to you. You're going to have to go visit the areas that you consider potential spots, and just decide what actually speaks to you. It doesn't matter what my opinion is or somebody else's. If it doesn't work for you, I mean, that's what's most important. And I think another important one looking up in there is demographics. Uh, my county is primarily people that look like me, right? So that was important to me because if stuff were to hit the fan, okay, I know in these post-apocalyptic movies and shows, they always show a collection of all different people coming together and working together as a group and that, and it's a nice little liberal wet dream fantasy, but in reality, humans are tribal. And when there's bad times and people are worried for their lives, like people are going to tribe up and do things. And I just did not want to be in an area surrounded by people that aren't like me and don't think like me. Somebody's going to attack me in the comments, call me racist or whatever, that it's wrong to choose a place based upon demographics. But, I don't even care. That's one of those words that gets thrown around so much that it just doesn't even mean anything anymore. When you're deciding where you and your family want to live, what's going to be best and safest for you, political correctness should be the last thing on your mind. Put all that nonsense behind you and look for what actually works for you. What's safe? Because a lot of places have become worse. I mean, a lot of people get this idea in the Appalachians, like Eastern Kentucky and Tennessee might be good areas. And sure, 20 or 30 years ago, I would have agreed that's the case, but it's changed a lot when you look into it. I mean, the demographics have changed there dramatically, and there is major drug and crime problems. Those are things you need to look into. Like, it was hilarious looking into the history of my county here because as far as they've been keeping records, like there has not been a homicide in this county in like forever. So that's the kind of place you want to move to. Look into that. Not only homicide type of crimes, but also equipment theft. There were counties looking just a little to the west of here in Oklahoma where because there's different groups of people there, equipment theft is sky high there. Uh, okay, maybe you're not going to be a victim of a violent crime, but everything you got that isn't nailed down is going to get stolen from you. That's not good either. So set aside the political correctness and look deep into this stuff. A lot of counties around here are dry counties. So if you're someone that likes to drink, maybe that wouldn't work out for you. I don't drink, so it didn't bother me at all. And to me, it was actually a positive because I feel like that helps keep out some of the riffraff. So again, you just got to think through these things and determine what you can and cannot do without and do the research. I did for 5 years, and then I was following this area long before I ever came time to buy. I was doing my research and taking on overtime at work and making money and whatever it takes. This homesteading isn't something you just wave a magic wand and start. It's something you gotta put in the work ahead of time for. Even before the work begins, you got work to do. Okay, so I really don't want to hear it from people when they say, well, you don't understand. I would love to homestead, but I can't. No, nobody wants to hear that. Just go ahead and tell yourself, admit that you're not willing to go through what it takes to do it. At least that would be honest with yourself to admit that you're just not willing to compromise. I mean, I had to give up. It's insulting when people say something like, well, you're just lucky you were able to get property when a lot of us can't. As if I didn't sacrifice to make it happen, as if I didn't sacrifice everything in my life for it. My past job I was at for 17 years, working my ass off. You can ask any of my past coworkers, like, anytime there was overtime, I volunteered for it. I was out there. Holidays, weekends, whatever, didn't matter. I was always there. We had a 72-hour work limit, and I was pushing up against that all the time, constantly for 17 years. I worked to make that happen. And while my coworkers were going on fancy vacations to Dominican Republic or something, I was at home saving money, working towards my goal. So it's up to you. Are you willing to then move onto a property? Do you need it to be set up nicely for you? Do you need to be grid tied and have running water and all these? For me, yeah, I know most of you would not be willing to come out here. If you lived even one weekend of my life, you would tap out. You know, when you got to start crapping in a bucket and showering outdoors in the winter, you'd say no, absolutely not. But I was willing to do it, and you got to determine what you're willing to do or not. What must you have? I love that I'm completely alone out here, have my privacy, and have the freedom to do so many things. But there's compromises made, like my nearest emergency room is a 45-minute drive away from here. If you have medical issues you need medical care for, is that something you would be willing to compromise, or would you need to move closer to something like that? You know, even when I want to go get groceries, it's quite a drive to go into town to go get them. Everything in life is a compromise. So determine for yourself what you can and can't live without, and do your research. And if you're going to get out, I mean, at least start now the planning. If you can't do it at the moment, that's no reason not to research, not to look. It doesn't hurt. You can make phone calls. You know, once you've narrowed down to an area, contact a realtor in the area. Start a conversation. You know, let them know what your timeline looks like, what you're thinking, what you can and can't do. Who knows? Maybe something will come up. And it doesn't need to be huge acreage. You know, I've seen people get away with just a little couple acres that just happens to be in the right spot, and it's great. You know, if you can have a quarter acre of a garden and some chickens, I mean, that's infinitely better than being on your postal stamp property in the city, you know, right? So whether you're getting 2 acres or 200, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's more the location of it, and is it working for you? Geography is a pretty interesting thing for me. So uh, if you guys got anything interesting to add to this, please put it down in the comments. You know, I like to hear your opinions, what you were looking for if you bought property, or what you're looking for specifically. If there's an area you live in that you think would be a good spot to relocate to, maybe give the reasons why. I just like hearing these things from people. You learn so much just by communicating with people that way. So put it down in the comments what you think on this stuff. I'd like to hear it.